Hello and welcome viewers to a new episode on our ongoing lecture series on media theories. Our topic of discussion today will be Marxism and cultural productions. We have with us today Mr. Shomo Shobrodas, who is a faculty of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. Welcome, sir. I am Shayantan Mukherjee, a student of media science. And tell us, sir, about this topic.
Okay, we have already discussed about the theoretical implementation of Marxist media theories. Okay, and how the various theories can be related to media and the productions. And today we will be discussing about the cultural texts or cultural reproductions, in the sense that various forms of media have their own representations. For example, in television we have televisual series, in cinema we have various films, documentaries, and of course one aspect that we really do not throw light upon is music and music videos, which are not very common in a country like India.
Yeah.
Once it was, but throughout the world it is very important. It's a very important cultural production, and how you represent your song in terms of visuals and images. Okay, we will not get into any kind of theory, but we will just discuss and how those Marxist theories can be located in various films. I'm not saying that I will be discussing the Marxist and films like Eisenstein's, like other socialist filmmakers. There is a very important film by Antonioni on student revolution of 1970s called The Zabriskie Point, which is a direct attack on the bourgeois society. But there has been other films too where very strong images and very strong messages have been given, which acts almost like a revolution against the contemporary status quo set by the capitalist world. Let's start with Marxism and cinema. Now, what are the various important films that reflect in some way or the other, in a very indirect way, in a direct way, or in the most subtlest of ways, where we can locate a kind of an anti-capitalist notion or anti-capitalist trend, which puts itself into, it aligns itself with the thoughts of Marxist ideas. Of course, we have all seen this film, Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. Absolutely. I remember when, of course, all of you will agree with me that when we were children, when we were kids, this film was very different to us. When we grow up, this film becomes entirely different to us.
Yes.
Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. And this is one of the images which later on became one of the posters. The story of the main essence of Marxism, well, labor. We have been discussing how labor is exploited, on which capitalism earns its profit. And how this idea is cemented, is foregrounded, and is being accepted to us. It is made to be accepted to us through various forms of media. But there are certain films which just pull off this cloth and makes the reality naked, makes some images, creates some images which shows the real version of what is there behind the curtains. And this film, I would discuss two aspects of this film. One is, it starts off with the clock.
Yes.
Time, which has been manipulated as one of the most crucial aspects of production. And in this film, Charlie Chaplin shows a huge clock. And then there's a herd of sheep. Say anything when you're making a film.
True.
Okay, and then we see the first sequence where the Marxist idea of alienation of labor. Again, I will explain what is alienation of labor. Suppose I will make you tighten a screw on a particular piece of machine throughout the day, 10 hours a day, and you have the only job of tightening a screw at one part of the machine, and you do it every day every hour of your day, every minute of your hour, every second of the minute. I will ask you, what will be your reaction? How will you react after that? This is the exact point what Marx had said about alienation. And while doing this is very inhuman. And while doing this, two things happen. One is that the laborer who is doing this loses the pleasure of creating something, because he's only attached to one point of time, at one point of the production. People who want to locate Marxism, we all know that Charlie Chaplin was thrown out of United States, and United States was alleging Charlie Chaplin as communist, and later on we only felt that how Marxist he was.
Yes.
Okay. So this was one of the very important films which gave us the ideas of Marx and how class operates.
Okay.
And in this film, in the first sequence, you do not hear the proletariats, the working class. You do not hear this man. You can only hear the machines, of course, and the idle sitting boss who does nothing. He is only heard, and he can see everyone.
Yes.
Okay, there's a beautiful scene of when Charlie Chaplin goes to the washroom, and he takes a puff from a cigarette, and then suddenly
the
boss says, "Why are you wasting your time?" Yes. The next film that comes to our mind is Hrithik Kumar Ghatak's Meghe Dhaka Tara. And here, why it is important is that it's not a Marxist or a political film in that way, but what it gives us an idea of a very important aspect of Marxist thought. The family. The family as the smallest unit of the state, that too a capitalist state. Here, why it is important is that Nita is the elder daughter of a dislocated family, a refugee family, who after the Indian Great Divide comes from Bangladesh to India and settles here. And she's the sole earning member, and she supports her parents, her sister, her two brothers. And the narrative goes at a certain point where the mother, who is, I'm not saying that the mother is an evil woman, she loves her daughter like anything, but it's the survival of this kind of a family after the division of a country, survival in a very mixed capitalist society. She has to bank on her daughter, and she doesn't want her elder daughter to get married, because if she gets married, who will earn for the family? Okay. And the love interest of this woman, the elder sister Nita, the boyfriend of Nita, gets married to her own sister, because the boyfriend is in that grinding machine of that utilitarian status quo. He needs to earn money, he needs to have a job, he needs to settle down. Family, job, education, of course, it's the status quo. No? And this film questions the very essence of that existence. In the Marxist term, it is known as reification, where the human relationships are boiled down to transactions. Why she is very important for the family? Because she earns. And if she goes away, then the family will starve. This is what capitalism has done to us. Okay.
It questions the ethical nature of capitalism.
Yes. The next film that I should discuss is Satyajit Ray's Pratidwandi, or The Adversary. This is one of the 3 films of Calcutta trilogy made by Satyajit Ray in the 70s. And you will find that Satyajit Ray is no more classical here. He is adopting some abrupt cuts. He has become a Godarian in the sense that he will shock the audience, the viewers. He will cut abruptly. Suddenly the whole image becomes negative, and suddenly the music comes in. Suddenly the film is slow. Suddenly it is very fast. In this film, this is again, the protagonist is not a Marxist. He is neither ready to belong to the decadent bourgeois society of the 1970s, Bhadralok of Kolkata. In a very important sequence of this film, in an interview, this person, Siddhartha, the protagonist, is asked, what do you think is the most important event of the last decade? The last decade, 1960s.
Okay.
And he answers, he takes a pause for a few minutes, for a few seconds, and he answers, the Vietnam War, sir. And the people who are the interviewers, the bosses, the epitome of the bourgeois societies, they said, Vietnam War? Why do you think it is so?
What would you regard as the most outstanding and significant event of the last decade?
The war in Vietnam, sir.
More significant than the landing on the moon?
I think so, sir.
And he says that, yes, of course it was achievement, it was a great achievement, but it wasn't unprecedented. The kind of advancement in space technology was there, it had to come someday, but the resistance of the villagers in Vietnam against the American forces, that takes his breath away. I'm just quoting him.
Yes.
Do you think the war in Vietnam was unpredictable?
Not the war itself, but what it has revealed about the Vietnamese people, about their extraordinary power of resistance. Ordinary people, peasants, and no one knew they had it in them. And this isn't a matter of technology, it's just plain human courage.
And then he's asked, are you a communist?
Are you a communist?
I don't think one has to be one in order to admire Vietnam, sir.
In this capitalist world, in a bureaucratic society, in a decadent Bhadralok society in a third world country, if someone finds out that you are the individual who thinks in a political way, that too in a little left-oriented way, in a Marxist way, you will not get into the structure. He's just thrown out. He doesn't get the job. But if he gets the job, there will be the risk for this bureaucratic society. He will start questioning.
Yes. They all fear him.
Yes. This is the most weird film in our list. Jean-Luc Godard's Weekend. Of course, people who know Godard, you can well imagine what kind of filmmaker Godard is. Once Satyajit Ray said that if Jean-Luc Godard is the Picasso of the cinema world, you do not admire Pablo Picasso for his brilliant realistic work. It really doesn't matter. But you admire Pablo Picasso for his representation which questions the reality. This is a film which questions the very essence of our over-dependence, our obsession with the consumer durables. At that point of time, in late 60s, in France, the French society was overwhelmingly dependent on automobiles, motor cars. And in this film, you will see that how the objects, the commodities that we consume has started consuming us. Would this film be remembered?
No. You have to sensationalize normal things.
Not sensationalize.
Then.
You have to philosophize. I would rather say you have to philosophize. You sensationalize the real things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You put color to reality.
Yes, spice.
But
yes.
When it comes to philosophy, you think about your future. You think about the human nature.
Okay. So the difference is?
The difference is the human aspect, the human essence.
Okay.
The difference is sensitivity.
Sensitivity is the
sensitivity.
difference.
The more sensitive a person is, the more philosophical he becomes.
Okay.
Okay. David Fincher's Fight Club. I will just discuss some of the dialogues and it will be self-explanatory. The protagonist talks about his refrigerator, his friend. He has a friend called Tyler, played by Brad Pitt, and he is almost an anarchist, a hugely critical, cynical man, critical of the capitalist system. And at the end of the film, you will start questioning your own essence of living, your own essence of existence in this world where our obsessions, our everyday desire is regarding a commodity, ends up in commodity. Certain dialogues regarding his refrigerator. He says, a house full of condiments and no real food. In a world
Yes.
of fast food, we savor McDonald's and KFC and whatnot, but we take a lot of pleasure in it. But again, it's a packaged food, and the problem is we take pride in it because there's some kind of fetishism attached to it.
Yes, a prestige.
A prestige.
Yes.
Exactly. This is the thing that is questioned here in this film. There's another dialogue which Tyler says, when deep space exploration ramps up, it will be the corporations that name everything. The IBM Stellarsphere, the Microsoft Galaxy, Planet Starbucks. Okay.
Okay.
In the end of the film, there's another monologue. The things you own end up owning you. This is so true.
Yes,
This is so
reminiscent
true.
of the Godard movie.
Yes, exactly so. The Weekend. And David Fincher, in one of his interviews, have said, we are taught to consume from an early age to keep the wheels of capitalism moving. We are so desperate to keep the things that we have that we mindlessly conform to this paradigm without ever challenging it. Now, this is where the film becomes very important. In each and every aspect, each and every dialogue, each and every sequence, this thing is reverberated. This idea of this director is reverberated in the film. Neil Blomkamp's District 9. Here, you have a direct attack on the media representation, media as amplifiers, where it is shown in this film that the media names some of the aliens as prawns, a very dehumanizing or a very disrespectful thing to do. And this film has a very weird narrative. It's a science fiction, but it is symbolizes, metaphorically, it represents the human struggle. Aliens are not important here. It's just a metaphor.
Why are you here? Why don't you just leave? How do your weapons work?
You will find that a lower class entity, another classless entity team up and they fight against multinational corporation who make weapons. It's actually, this film actually ends up being the human capitalist mercenaries against the aliens who are classless, who are outside this capitalist world. This is one of the very important aspects of this film.
So the aliens represent the mass population then?
No, the exploited, the dominated. Now we will talk about two television series. I'm sure all of you have seen, or if you haven't seen, please watch it. Breaking Bad by Vince Gilligan. And Breaking Bad takes a very interesting stance, a very critical stance of all the narrative structures of television series so far.
Okay.
It starts with the perfect, American dream of an American family or a home where everyone stays and lives a very happy life, just like it reminds us of Friends and
Yes.
or Dallas or all those things, Bold and the Beautiful.
Yeah.
But suddenly, each and every aspect of human dealings, starting off with buying a medicine or going to an attorney, doing a job, fighting with cancer, or just survival. Every aspect of human life, how wretchedly and how deplorable way, is dominated by money.
Okay.
And this series is just a kind of a examination of the great American dream under the strict clause of the capitalist eagle.
Okay.
This is very interesting. And how a man who is fighting his cancer, he's an underachiever, but he's brilliant, he soars up into this capitalist world by making a drug, a kind of a meth. And he earns a lot of money, ends up on the losing side, ends up without the family, ends up as an individual, as a mistrusted, wanted person.
You understood what I've just said to you.
Yes. Lung cancer. Inoperable.
A substantial.
So what does it signify?
It signifies a certain kind of a, we have this in our everyday representations in India, in media, in television, in films. Family is very important. And as if family is independent of this financial world, this capitalist regime. We think in that way, which it's not.
Okay.
Okay, now The Walking Dead, developed by Frank Darabont. It's a zombie series, but it signifies something that early writings of Marx, what it indicates. Here, the deads symbolize the bourgeois society. The only thing that the deads, the walking deads, the zombies are careful is about taking and consuming resources.
Okay.
And more important than that, in this apocalyptic zombie infested world, you have a group of people whose survival depends on the community instincts, the equal distribution of wealth, where family or private property, whenever they try for a private ownership or a private property and claiming it, they will lose the battle against this alien world. It symbolizes a certain kind of the early historical communist societies or the prehistorical societies where the survival is based on community. Not family also, it's community. Once you just get outside the community and you start having a very capitalized or a capitalist or a privatized sense of ownership, you stop surviving. This is the condition of this series. Now we will end up with some music videos which blatantly reflect the ideas of Marxism and very harshly are critical of the capitalist society. Macklemore's Wings, it is direct attack on hugely popular brand of shoes.
I was 7 years old when I got my first pair, and I stepped outside and I was like, Mama, this air bubble right here, it's gonna make me fly. I hit that court, and when I jumped, I swear I got so high, I touched the net. Mom, I touched the net. This is the best day of my life.
Look at the wings. Wings S is $1, and this is all about commodity fetishism. You will see that how a child's mind is influenced by this commodity fetishism. The next one is Chemical Brothers' Believe. Believe is something which is not a song, it's just a music piece. And here we have this idea of Marxist idea of alienation of labor. What we can see here is, in the foreground there's a young laborer who works day in and day out in a factory. And in the background there's a monster which is actually a machine, a kind of a robot machine which helps in assembling parts of a car. And suddenly he loses his mind and he sees that everywhere in the city, in the metro, he is being chased by this monster, which is actually the machine with which he works. This has a lot of similarity to Charlie Chaplin's
Modern Times. Yes.
R.E.M's Imitation of Life, this whole frame of this music video called Imitation of Life, and you will find that it's a kind of a criticism of the society in total. Now this is not a music video but a piece of music. It's Chumbawamba's The Land of Do What You're Told. Okay, and this is the cover of that album. It doesn't have a music video because this is very political song about the state and how the state in its capitalist structure exploits the laborers.
Okay.
And of course, no producer will come and produce this kind of a song.
Obviously not.
Chumbawamba, if you have forgotten, this band made a huge hit with Tub Thumping. Of course, the last, John Lennon's Working Class Hero. Working Class Hero says that you are always exploited through media, through society, but this working class hero is something to be. John Lennon was out of Beatles at this point of time and he was being very political. Now, these are the cultural productions that we have, and very interestingly, these productions in somehow or the other are popular. All these films, all these things that we have seen here, they are very popular.
Yes.
I will just end with The last lyrics keep you doped with religion and sex and TV, and you think you're so clever and classless and free. But you're still, and then you have a word which we can't utter. You are still something peasants, as far as I can see. A working class hero is something to be. So it's not very unusual for a person like John Lennon, and it wasn't very unusual, and it is not still now, it's not very unusual that these cultural productions, cinema, television series, and songs, they uphold a kind of a image and representation of the reality, which really makes us question the status quo, which we are so settled under capitalist rule. And I'm sure people who haven't seen a few music videos, the television series, the films, they will surely watch these films, and of course they will have their own list.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that we come to the end of this discussion session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A working class hero is something to be. A working class hero is something to be. If you want to be a hero, well, just follow me.